Yo, what is up, guys? It is the Gong Master here. How's everyone doing? Hopefully everyone is having a beautiful day. Welcome back to another episode of Storytime. This life story is about the time my wife and I were stranded in our broke down car in the middle of nowhere. Let's talk about it. This life story takes place literally a few days ago. My wife and I had to travel across the state to the west coast of Florida because of some family matters. We hung out there for a few days and ended up coming back home because we still had to open our shop. So we're driving out in the middle of nowhere in central Florida. We were between two towns in the middle of the boonies. And if you don't know what the boonies are, I'm gonna take a wild guess and say that you live in the city. You fucking city slicker. I'm not good at describing stuff, so I'll just show some pictures here. Like, it's quite literally the middle of nowhere. It's literally usually just a two-lane highway, one going one way, one going the other. And it goes on for miles and miles and miles. There's a few houses, there's a few farms scattered here and there, but for the most part, it is completely empty. It was raining and we were both really exhausted. I did the first half of driving, then my wife, Zoe, took over for the last half. We had just swapped drivers. Middle of nowhere, raining, getting dark, and that's when my wife says, "What does this light on my dash mean? And why did it get so hard to steer all of the sudden?" I peek over and my god, her dash was lit up like a Christmas tree. The car was making all sorts of noises. The dash was saying check engine, check battery, check fucking everything. The car sputters and we end up pulling off the road. I pop the hood and notice that there is some pretty thick smoke coming from behind the engine. As soon as I saw that smoke, I knew we were toast. It was game over. I am not a mechanic at all. I have no idea what is wrong with this thing. All I know about cars is that they have four wheels, a few doors, and they go from point A to point B. That's all I know about cars. So it's about 5 o'clock in the evening when the car breaks down. We called AAA and they say that a tow truck will arrive in about an hour. So we're sitting in the car, and since the car battery was fucked, there was no AC, so it was getting pretty humid and real muggy in the car. There was a lot of condensation buildup on the windows. It was starting to stink a little bit. Zoe and I weren't really freaking out. We were just more upset that we were only about an hour away from home. We were so close yet so far. And of all places for the car to break down, clearly right fucking here was the best spot the car decided. About an hour later, AAA calls us back to confirm the location. The AAA representative asks if we need a ride with the tow truck. We say yes because we were in the middle of fucking nowhere, and our home was still an hour away, and we knew nobody around us that could give us a ride. And also, not to mention, an Uber back home would have costed quite a bit. The lady says that they were having a hard time finding a tow truck with a cabin that we could sit in. She said she would call us back when she found one. It took them a while to call the first time. It had already been an hour. So Zoe and I are starting to get a little agitated, and we decide that now we have to pee. So what did we do? Well, we just peed on the side of the road. We opened the car doors to act as like a little shield, and we just took turns peeing. You know how they say that there's a first for everything? Peeing on the side of the road while waiting for a tow truck definitely checks that box. An hour passes, and there's still no word about the tow truck, so we call again. We speak to the actual tow truck driver this time, and he says that the company booked him for our job right as he was doing another one. So he was about an hour and a half away, since he was coming from the other side of our city. At this point, it's completely just pitch black. Rain is still pelting the car. We were periodically opening the door to let fresh air in, and we ended up letting in dozens of mosquitoes into the car. So the tow truck is an hour away. It's dark and rainy. You're stranded on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere, and you have no less than 30 mosquitoes in the car biting you up. What do? I'll tell you what you do. Fucking nothing. Just sit there and wait. We broke down at 5. The tow truck didn't show up until 9. We kept being told, yes, the tow truck is on the way, it will be there momentarily. It took 4 hours for this thing to show up. The sigh of relief that Zoe and I had upon seeing the tow truck. So he hooks up the car and he looks at something dangling underneath in the wheel well. He stands back up and says, "I'll be damned. There's your issue." And he points to a black belt hanging out of the wheel well. Turns out it was the serpentine belt. For those of you that don't know what the serpentine belt does, this thing controls pretty much everything about the car. Power steering, alternator, starter, ABS, just about everything. And of course, we were on the worst AAA plan. We were only covered for 5 miles of that tow. 1 hour and $200 later, we arrived at the garage we told him to tow us to. We dropped the car off in front of the garage, since at this point it was closed. And thank God it was only a 10-minute walk from the garage to the apartment. Next morning, at 8 a.m., I walked to the garage and explained to them why we left our car. I leave my information with them, and they said that they would take a look at it and they would give us a call back later. I go back to the apartment, and Zoe and I take an Uber to work. After work, we took another Uber back to the garage, and the mechanic said that, yes, it was the serpentine belt that slipped off, and since it was quote-unquote as easy as putting the belt back on, they didn't charge us at all. So we took the car back, started it, it works, everything is fine, the car drives. But Zoe decided to take the car to another garage the next day, just because she was skeptical about the first garage doing it for free. I was telling her, like, babe, it's fine, it's fixed. They said it was the belt, it slipped off, they put it back on, it's fine. So she ends up still taking the car to Firestone, and man, was I wrong. Firestone said that there were a lot more issues with the car. They were saying that the belt was not safe to use, so they used a new belt. That's one thing I forgot to mention, is at the first garage, they just reused the original belt since they said it was fine. But Firestone said that this belt wasn't good. They also said that the pulleys, apparently the belt is on some type of pulley. They said that the pulley was damaged and they had to replace that. Then they had to tweak a few things and, well, $700 later, the car is in 100% working condition again. I have never been broken down in the middle of nowhere like that. That's some shit from a horror movie. My advice to you, number 1, be prepared. Lucky for me, I always carry a portable power brick thing. So thank God we could at least keep our phones powered. My second piece of advice to you, don't get stranded in the middle of nowhere. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend.